Hey, welcome to SI Now. It is Wednesday, May 10th, and I'm Maggie Gray. If you are watching on Facebook Live, well, hello. Thank you for stopping by. On today's show, we're going to check in with the Las Vegas Superbook to see where the wagers are coming on a potential Mayweather-McGregor match. Plus, the statistics you should really pay attention to for your fantasy baseball team. We're going to tell you what those are. But first, basketball. Our NBA analyst Jordan Schultz is here. All right, Tuesday night, Greg Popovich, we rarely say this. He said it best when he said that Manu Ginobili reached back, gave San Antonio a vintage performance. He strips James Harden on that final three-point attempt. Now they win Game 5. They're one game away from the Western Conference Finals. And I wish that could be the story, but unfortunately it is not because Kawhi Leonard looks like a sprained ankle. He says he will play in Game 6. But, Jordan, can the Spurs win this series if Kawhi Leonard is not healthy?
I think they win the series. They definitely cannot even contend a little bit with Golden State without him. You're talking about a legitimate top 5 NBA player, both sides of the ball, not a better two-way player. San Antonio, Maggie, #1 overall in the NBA defensive efficiency, 6th in overall offensive efficiency. Kawhi Leonard is the main reason why. They run pretty much everything through him. He can score on all 3 levels, and obviously defensively he's tremendous. So there's really no way they can compete with Golden State. But I do think even with him at 75%, they do beat Houston.
It just feels like this is definitely going 7 games. In the last 3, though, James Harden, 13 for 39 from 3. Quick math, 33%. Should he think about shooting fewer threes?
For me, the answer is no, just because that's what they do. No team in the NBA shot more. 42%, Maggie, of their offensive attempts come from 3. It's insane. And not only that, they shoot deeper threes by twice the amount than any other NBA team. So, he goes 4 for 15, but that predicates his drives, and nobody in the NBA shot more free throws. So I can't say that Harden should take less threes. I think he does settle like any player and gets tired late in games, but he got hot early and then he just missed late. It's a make or miss league. That's what happens.
I guess, what's that saying? Like, dance with the one who brung you? Like, if you've been shooting threes all season long, live by it, die by it. And it looks like,
the difference is that Houston doesn't defend like Golden State. Golden State takes a lot of threes, but they defend at a high level. Houston, middle of the league.
Yeah, of course. Okay, we, of course, have Wizards Celtics tonight, keeping an eye on your pick that the Wizards are going to win this series, so we'll see what happens there. But we should talk a little bit about the NBA Draft Combine. It's happening now in Chicago. 67 prospects are there, although some notable absences. This doesn't have the same notoriety or impact as the NFL Combine. But still, when you look at the names that are going to be missing, we're talking about Lonzo Ball and Josh Jackson, Jason Tatum, Malik Monk, Jonathan Isaac, Lauri Markkanen. The list goes on. Why have they chosen to skip this event?
I think with the NBA guys, they feel like the sample size for college players is so much bigger than a football player. These guys are playing 35, 40 games a year.
But sometimes it's just one season.
That's true. But in the case of Lonzo Ball, he's pretty much cemented as a top 3 to top 5 pick at the worst case. If he goes to the combine and gets hurt, or he doesn't shoot it all that well, or he doesn't bench press a lot, he could hurt himself. And Lauri Markkanen is another example from Arizona. He's a really good player, had a big-time freshman year, not that strong. He's probably not going to measure out really well athletically. They feel like they can control it. Why go to the combine and take a risk when you're already? Most of those guys are going to be lottery picks anyway.
That's true, but so is Markelle Fultz and De'Aaron Fox, and they are choosing to go.
Which I like, because those are point guards, and they want to go at it, and they will go at it. I like that.
Because Lonzo's a point guard, too.
Sure.
Should he be in that mix?
I prefer when guys go to the combine. Sure. I think, there's a lot of drills athletically. There's a lot of useless stuff, a lot of sprints and shuttle drills, but they also
play. Like any combine, though.
That's true. And they also play 5-on-5, and that's the difference. You don't see 7-on-7 at the NFL combine. The 5-on-5 stuff is legit at the NBA Draft Combine. They play all day, they scrimmage, and they also shoot a lot of jumpers. So guys like De'Aaron Fox, who probably has spent the last few weeks shooting 500 threes a day, I would imagine, he can go say, you know what, I've refined my stroke a little bit. It's not so much of a concern. For Malik Monk not going, that disappoints me as well, because I thought he could have shown I can guard a couple spots, and I can also score off the dribble, which is something he didn't do a ton in college. I also really like the fact that Fultz is going, because he could be the #1 pick, and I think he could really cement himself as the #1 pick.
Producer Ben telling my ear that Fultz and De'Aaron Fox will not play 5-on-5. They'll do the other drills. But listen, in the NFL Combine, it's really about the medicals, and it's about the interviews more than anything. With these guys not going, I wonder if they deserve to be questioned by these teams.
Yeah, for me, the answer is yes. Jason Tatum like, he had a really good freshman year. In the second half of the year for Duke, he became the guy, right? And then all of a sudden he says, you know what? I don't want to go to the combine. I don't want to play 5-on-5. I don't want to bench press. That's disappointing to me because, you know, he's 18, 19 years old. He could go dominate the combine. And for me, that's a guy that could legitimately get himself in the top 3 with a great combine performance. That's disappointing. I'm also disappointed by the fact that those 2 point guards won't be playing 5. But that is how guys have gotten injured in the past, and then they've slipped.
Give me a player with the most to gain at the combine.
There's a lot of guys. I mean, I think Frank Jackson's one of them, you know, from Duke.
Yep.
We talked about Tatum. Can he run the point? Can he be a guy that isn't just a 6'1.5" combo player? Can he be a legitimate point guard in the NBA? I don't think he can, but I think he can certainly show I can play this spot. I think there's a couple other guys as well, but I look at Frank Jackson, certainly. I think Jordan Bell could probably help himself a lot, you know, from Oregon.
Yeah.
Can he score a little bit? Can he score enough to be an NBA power forward or at least a guy off the bench?
Yeah, of course, he had a great tournament until their last game, which was a little bit of a disappointment. How about a player with the most to lose at this point, whose stock is really high but can only go down?
There's a few guys for me. I think you start to think about, you know, a guy like, maybe a De'Aaron Fox. He could hurt himself as well. I mean, listen, if he doesn't shoot the ball well, all of a sudden you're talking about a guy that shot 30% or 25% from 3 this year and is only 6'1.5". So that can go both ways. I mean, he's an unbelievable athlete. He's left-handed. He dominated Lonzo Ball in the NCAA tournament, but he could really hurt himself as well. That's why I give a guy like him credit for trying to go and show that he can play at this level.
Yeah, if he doesn't shoot well, I'll be reminded of a quote that John Calipari said about mid-season, where apparently he pulled De'Aaron Fox aside and said, at some point, you got to start making them.
Yeah.
And that was a real turning point for De'Aaron Fox.
From 3.
From 3.
Yeah.
And then, of course, they went on to have a great run. Okay. This is not going to shock you. LeVar Ball is at it again. On Tuesday, he was giving hotter takes on FS1 than even Skip, explaining that his son Lonzo is starting his career in a better position than Michael Jordan because Lonzo already has his own brand, the Big Baller brand. Of course, remember, Jordan
BQ
won a national title. And, of course, he was playing in an era where essentially Chuck Taylors were the sneaker of choice before Jordan came along. But that's just the latest out of the mouth of LeVar. Here are our list of LeVar's biggest brags. We start with his NBA draft take. Listen to this.
Number one, because he's the only player in the draft that can make everybody else around him better. As you can see that with the UCLA. Why shouldn't he be number 1?
All right. Wonder if Markelle Fultz has anything to say about that one. Number 4, LeVar says his son can be better than a Laker great. And keep in mind, this is only number 4.
Lonzo had that same impact Magic had. It'll be better than that.
Tell the truth.
How's that?
Okay, number 3, where LeVar Ball's recent statement stands, and it just leaves us all baffled.
Michael Jordan could not command $100 for a pair of sneakers.
Because he ain't Lonzo Ball, that's why.
Bar, you better stop playing with me
I'm going to
now.
tell you again, did he have his own brand when he came in?
No.
It's a new era called the Ball era.
Please make that a gif of Shannon Sharp. All right, number 2 is next. It just keeps getting more and more ridiculous.
I have the utmost confidence in what my boy is doing. I'm going to tell you right now, he's better than Steph Curry to me. Here, put Steph Curry on UCLA's team right now and put my boy on Golden State and watch what happens.
Sure, Lonzo hasn't played a minute of NBA action, but he's better than the back-to-back reigning MVP. That makes a lot of sense. And number 1, his airness. Yep, this one apparently not a good one-on-one player, according to LeVar Ball. He says, back in my heyday, I would kill Michael Jordan. One-on-one, I can't keep a straight face while reading these. The closest LeVar will ever get to Jordan is the crying meme face someone will put on him after the Big Baller brand goes bankrupt. We're going to keep updating our list, Jordan. I know that is something that's going to be endless amounts of fun, frustration.
How about an executive texting me, LeVar Ball is toxic.
It was toxic.
I mean, you have to wonder how this is going to impact Lonzo, not just in the draft, but the pressure that this guy is putting on. I don't look at it like he's a genius. I look at it like this is a disaster waiting to happen.
I'll say this. No former athlete or current athlete who's commented on LeVar has said this is a good thing. Yeah. Every former athlete has said this guy is not doing right by his son. So I'll take it from those athletes. I think they know better than I do.
Yeah.
But we will see because we know LeVar is not going to keep his mouth shut. No, that's not true. Jordan, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. The The speculative super fight between Floyd Mayweather and Conor McGregor is still just that. It's speculation. But it hasn't stopped Vegas from taking bets on the match. So where is the money flowing? And who's the best bet? Let's bring in Jeff Sherman, manager of the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. All right, Jeff, there have been Mayweather-McGregor rumors for more than a year, but you opened wagering in February. Why then?
There was just some hype surrounding it, some momentum going with it, so we thought it was a good idea just to put it up and then let people have the opportunity to wager if they had wanted to.
Okay, initial odds put Mayweather as the heavy favorite at minus 2,500. So for people who don't bet, that means you have to bet $2,500 to win $100. McGregor is the underdog at plus 1,100. So to put those odds into perspective, Mayweather was minus 3,000 against Andre Berto in 2015 and minus 300 against Canelo Alvarez in 2013, while Mike Tyson was minus 4,200 against Buster Douglas before that unfathomable upset. So explain to us, why were the odds for Mayweather and McGregor established so high?
Well, we looked at the realistic chances of somebody that doesn't have boxing experience going up against one of the best of all time. So we looked at in relation to some other Mayweather fights and put the odds in a range we thought we would see some significant favorite money in addition to the dog money that's anticipated. The odds have dropped dramatically with the speculation of the fight and it not being official. We've taken a lot more wagers on McGregor, which has driven the price down to Mayweather minus 900 and McGregor plus 600. And we believe that if and when the fight is officially announced, at that point, we'll start to see large wagers on Mayweather show up that people don't want to tie up a lot of money to win a little at this point. But right now we're getting people that like to bet a little to win a lot, so the price has been driven down.
Yeah, what does that say about the fight that the odds have been driven down?
Well, there's a lot of people that believed in McGregor in his MMA career that just want to take a shot in this instance here, and in the boxing perspective, hope for maybe he can land a punch and get lucky, because a lot of the time the public likes to bet a little to win a lot, and they do that in other sports too, long shots and Super Bowl, and sometimes in the NBA title. You'd be surprised on some of the bets that we take. So that's what they're doing in this instance now. But I think if this fight officially gets announced, at that time, we will see some of the larger McGregor or Mayweather bets that will drive the price back up a little bit.
How do Mayweather fights usually do at the Vegas Superbook?
We usually do pretty well because a lot of the times he's a large enough favorite that we get anti-Mayweather money, and he's never lost. So it's been a good proposition booking it for us.
Yeah, so how much does Vegas stand to win or potentially lose if this fight actually takes place?
Well, I believe that if this fight does take place, this would be on par to what we saw with Mayweather-Pacquiao as far as the betting handle, just because of the media interest, the public interest. And it helps when you have a larger favorite in boxing because you get some people that show up that will bet a lot. For instance, our odds right now at minus $9, we'll take bets like 90,000 to win 10,000. You'll see those show up in a fight like this, where if the price on this fight was less than $2, say, then all that money doesn't add up quickly on the favorite to allow our betting handle to be large.
Very interesting. Everyone trying to make a quick buck, of course, betting on a prize fight. This one a little bit more unique than most. Jeff Sherman, manager of the Westgate Las Vegas Superbook. We appreciate your time and your expertise. Thank you.
Thanks for having me.
When a boxing match between Gennady Golovkin and Canelo Alvarez took the September date away from the UFC and this Mayweather-McGregor potential bout, got me thinking about what 2017 means for the fight game. We've all heard boxing's dead. It's become such a cliche, we've accepted it's true that the throne's occupied by the UFC while boxing just picks up the scraps. 2016 was a low point. Boxing failed to have a fight break 700,000 pay-per-views. Meanwhile, the UFC had 3 cards that topped 1 million buys. But put last year aside, boxing has beaten UFC in total pay-per-views 12 of the last 15 years. And 2017 is setting up to be dominated by boxing as well. The tide began to swing in boxing's favor the moment Rousey got knocked out by a former boxer, I might add. She came back but got knocked out again. As for the men, John Jones is wasting away the best years of his career. And as for McGregor, he jumped ship and the octagon to get a proper payday from boxing. Meanwhile, believe it or not, boxing promotions are delivering. Canelo Triple G, Ward Kovalev, Thurman Porter, and a potential heavyweight bout between Anthony Joshua and Deontay Wilder. The sport has proven to be alive and well in the year 2017. Who are the next stars of the UFC? Cody Garbrandt, Mickey Gall, Paige Van Zandt? Can UFC fans name any other fighters that can fill the void of the past greats? 2017 is far from over, but it's looking like this round goes to boxing. Don't at me.
I'm extremely embarrassed by my actions. I apologize to my teammates, to the Mets organization, to the Wilpons, all the way down to the Mets fans for doing what I did. And yes, I was out on Friday night, past curfew. I did play golf Saturday morning, and I put myself in a bad place to be ready for showing up for a ball game.
That was Matt Harvey apologizing for missing his most recent start. The former All-Star had blamed his missed start on a migraine headache, but that was a cover. In fact, he was out partying on Cinco de Mayo. Of course, this isn't Harvey's only run-in with the team. He has sparred with management on recovery methods and innings limits, and he missed a mandatory workout in 2015 after a night of alleged partying as well. Of course, Harvey, not the only athlete who has a reputation for enjoying the nightlife. And it appears the dark night is at a crossroads. So where will he go from here? We're looking at a few other famous athletes to try to see who Harvey is going to end up like. And let's start with one guy, Miguel Cabrera. He spent 3 months in an outpatient facility in 2010. It didn't stick. He was arrested for DUI in 2011, and ever since then has been getting treatment. Cabrera appears to have turned his life around, though, even winning baseball's Triple Crown in 2012. How about J.R. Smith? He was involved in a fatal DUI accident and was one of New York's most notorious partiers. He was traded to Cleveland, and under the tutelage of LeBron James, he won a title and signed a 4-year, $57 million contract extension. Let's look at David Wells, a notorious partier. He pitched his perfect game, the 15th in MLB history against the Twins in '98, after partying all night at a Saturday Night Live after party. Wells pitched 21 years, was a 3-time All-Star, and a 2-time World Series champion. And of course, the very bottom of this list is Johnny Manziel, a college football phenom, a Heisman winner, first-round pick, and is completely flamed out of the NFL, getting suspended by the league for violating the substance abuse policies. So, what will the future hold for Matt Harvey? We'll keep the baseball discussion going, but in a different direction. If you think the traditional baseball statistics are telling you the whole story, especially for your fantasy team, you are sadly mistaken. Keith Law has written a new book called Smart Baseball. He stopped by to educate us on what fans should be keeping their eye on. If you consider yourself an informed baseball fan, well, the odds are you're still placing too much emphasis on statistics that are misleading. Keith Law is a senior baseball writer for ESPN. He's written a new book. It's called Smart Baseball. He joins me now. All right, Keith, if you could just banish one baseball stat from the face of the earth, which one would it be?
It would be saves. I don't think any of these statistics, and I rip into quite a few of the old ones, has done as much damage to the whole sport of baseball as the save has, because not only has it changed the way we look at players, it's changed the way that rosters are constructed, that games are managed, and especially that players are compensated, where the same pitcher with a higher save total can make 2 or 3 times as much money. And I think that's done a ton of damage to the sport as a whole, and may even tie into this pace of play debate that seems to be dominating baseball coverage.
Yeah, when you have so many pitching changes throughout the course of a game. Isn't the irony, though, that the general managers in baseball are the ones who have the most statistical information, yet they're the ones who are signing contracts that give incentives for these antiquated benchmarks like saves leader or hit king, batting average king, things like that.
Both sides in the CBA negotiations have tried to find some common ground where they could maybe use even better old school statistics, and they can never come to an agreement. So if you look at player contracts, it's always just stuff like games played, games started, games finished, stuff that, well, yes, it shows that you were durable, you get incentives for that, but it doesn't really say anything meaningful about how well you performed.
What about the fantasy baseball aspect of this? So some of these old statistics, batting average and saves, things like that, are they being kept alive because of fantasy baseball?
I think so, and I was a fantasy baseball player for some time. It's how I first became aware of sabermetrics, and although I haven't played it myself in forever, a lot of my readers do use my ESPN content to help them in their fantasy teams. And I wonder to what extent that's, just like you said, that's kind of kept the RBIs, the pitcher wins, the saves alive, because it's useful for fantasy purposes. You want to be able to count and keep track of how often your players are playing, because there's just a reward for having guys healthy and on the roster. At the same time, if that's how you're used to thinking of player value, it really doesn't translate that well to real on-field baseball value.
Okay, we want just selfishly to get some fantasy baseball advice
That's
from you
okay.
because you said that everyone uses your statistics, us included. So in terms of pitching, what are you looking for to determine whether or not they're going to be a factor once we get into the dog days of summer?
Well, in the chapter where I discuss the pros and cons of ERA gets into that question quite a bit, where one thing we know, there are certain things that a pitcher absolutely controls. How often he strikes hitters out, how often he walks hitters, to some extent how often he's giving up home runs. And then there are some things that the pitcher only has partial control over. So the first thing I'm always looking at, this is true for a minor leaguer, a big leaguer, even in a small sample, is he striking guys out? Is he missing bats? And now with advanced data from StatCast too, we even have more information on what pitches might be missing more bats. That to me is the best indicator that a pitcher will continue to have success, or maybe that his hot start is something of a fluke.
Okay, so what about on the flip side for hitters? How are you determining who's a good, in terms of fantasy baseball, who's good to spend money on and who's worthwhile to keep around for the whole season?
Of all the traditional stats, the first one I still look at is on-base percentage. But when I'm looking in smaller samples, or especially, again, looking at minor leaguers, even over a full season, okay, what's his age relative to his level, and how often is he striking out? How often is he getting on base? Because those are fairly fundamental things. A good hitter is not striking out often. Now, he may not have a high batting average. He may be running into some bad luck here or there. Is he striking out? Is he overmatched at this point? Has he run into, have pitchers found a way to get this guy out? Okay, well, now we're starting to see that come through. Even if it's not in the overall stat line, it might be in some of those lesser indicators.
I really like how the book is set up in terms of addressing the old stats, bringing in some of the new, and then applying it to things that we hold so sacred, like the Hall of Fame. Is there someone who you look at who's in the Hall who just, by the statistics, just should not be in there?
I could go on and on about that. One of the ones that bothered me the most, I would say, is Bruce Sutter, especially because I think he opened the door for more closers to get in on the basis of the save totals. Sutter went in with the lowest innings pitch total of any player inducted into the Hall of Fame via the writers' vote. And the big argument for him was, well, he was the first. He was the first one-inning closer. And I don't really see that as a mark in his favor. That's really a reflection of how he was used. And that's true for saves. It's true for pitcher wins. It's true for RBIs. Manager decisions come into players compiling those stats as opposed to the player simply performing at his job.
Okay, so someone who you think absolutely should be in the Hall of Fame based on their statistics, who is not? Who is that?
I make a good case, or I think I make a good case, for Mike Mussina, who is still on the ballot, too. And I wanted to make sure I got at least one player in there who's still on the ballot, getting closer, not over the hump yet in terms of that 75% threshold in the voting. He had the 120-game, 20-win season. Yep. He never won a Cy Young Award. Those are things traditionally we would say, well, you got to do those things to get into the Hall of Fame. He didn't, but he had a Hall of Fame-worthy career, and some advanced metrics help us see that.
Yeah, it's really fascinating. And if you think you're diving into some kind of math textbook, that is not it at all. It is incredibly readable, and it is enlightening. Even for people like me in the media who think that we have a pretty good handle on this stuff, it is a really, really insightful read. So congratulations on this book.
Thank you so much.
Three-time Olympic gold medalist and 2015 Women's World Cup champion Shannon Boxx, good enough to join me. And Shannon, now that you've had a little time away from the game and from the outside looking in, what is your take on the state of the women's national team and its changes since 2015?
Oh my gosh, there's been so many changes since 2015. I think overall the state of the women's team is great. Obviously they just came up with a new contract, and I think that they're very happy with it. I don't know the details of it, but I know that they're happy. I know that they're in partnership with U.S. Soccer Federation, and the ultimate goal is to improve the women's game and improve soccer in America, and I think that that's what we've been doing for the past couple years.
You say that you don't really know the details of the CBA, but just going back through your history, graduating from Notre Dame in 1998, you've been playing professional soccer ever since then. What does this new collective bargaining agreement mean for female soccer players?
I mean, I think the big thing that everybody's hearing is, the women want to be paid to their value. And I think that since I've been on the team, the history of this team is that, you look back when Julie Foudy and all them were there, they started the whole process. They started that new CBA that really started giving them an opportunity to be professional soccer players, to live and breathe soccer, and that could be their only job. And they started that whole thing, and I think while I was there, we kind of continued to push that limit. It all starts for us on the soccer field. If we perform on the soccer field, we hope that then U.S. Soccer Federation sees that and rewards us for that. Again, we are the focus. All these other countries that have their women's teams are looking to us, and we're kind of leading the way. And more teams are getting more access and money from their federations, and you're starting to see that the gap is getting smaller and smaller, and that's what we really want to see.
Of course, it's a great day for women's soccer, the fact that there is a new collective bargaining agreement, a couple bullet points. The women now have salaries, which is nice. They also have some of the same thing the men are getting in terms of per diem, travel accommodations, things of that nature are now equal. But just with your perspective on playing professional soccer for so long, are there other changes that you would like to see made in the future?
I just think to continue to grow the sport. I mean, it would be great to see that we're filling the stands every single game that we're here in the U.S. I think, making sure that the youth programs are building so that we continue to have more soccer players play more than just youth. We have the biggest youth soccer here, and then it drops off. And I want to see that women and men are continuing to play soccer at the highest level.
How can that be achieved? Or is there a way that you can see a path where you can have more children go from youth soccer and then taking it to the next level?
I think you're starting to see it. I live in Portland, Oregon, and the atmosphere at the Timbers games, the atmosphere at the Thorns games, which are the two women's and men's professional teams there, it is amazing to see the transition that you're seeing, that now fans really are starting to understand soccer, and they're not just cheering for a goal, but they're understanding the beauty of the game. And I think that we are getting there. I think we're on the right path. When I think about the women's side, it's just continuing to push and realize that our value is no different than the men. And if we're winning games and we're winning tournaments, can they see that value and pay us the same?
What are some of the misconceptions about lupus that you'd like to dispel?
First, a lot of people don't know what lupus is. Lupus is an autoimmune disease that can affect any organ in your body. For me, the symptoms are, extreme fatigue, joint pain. But the misconception is that we're really not that sick. We look healthy. We don't look sick. When you talk about extreme fatigue, people are like, oh, well, I'm tired too. Well, no, this is a whole different level. And so I think that is very difficult for people to see. And I know for me, that was a big struggle when I was playing on the national team, is that no one's going to understand what this is. For me, I stayed quiet, and it was very lonely those first couple years on the national team, because I didn't want people to know. I didn't want my job to be at jeopardy.
If you were going back and doing that calculation again, would you have been upfront immediately about your disease, or do you feel like keeping it a secret was somehow necessary for you?
I look back now, and I think it would have been nicer if I could have opened up about it earlier. I don't know if I could have at that time, and I think that's why it's so important that I'm here today and talking about lupus, so that people are more confident in speaking up about it, because I think it would have made my life a little bit easier to know I had that support and less stress of trying to keep it hidden. Back then there weren't as many resources out there. Now there's so many resources to keep track of your symptoms. Usinlupus.com is a great resource that you can use to really track your stuff and to have that confidence to go to your doctor and give them all the information that you have so that you can get the diagnosis a lot sooner than I did.
Yeah, it was amazing to watch you play, then knowing that you were diagnosed with this disease, yet continuing to see you at an elite level was certainly a joy for us fans. Shannon Boxx reminding people that World Lupus Day is May 10th. Shannon, thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
I appreciate it, Maggie. Thank you so much.
Okay, that's going to do it for this episode of SI Now. Boy, did we cover a lot of ground today or what? We will see you back here tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. But until then, stick with SI.com for all the latest news. And don't forget to follow us on Twitter at SI Now Live. See you tomorrow.